fourth thing that came out of the process was start at a high level. Don't necessarily go to a detailed business plan right away. Make sure the client's really thinking about the basis for their business. Bill, do you want to talk about this a little bit?
Yeah, and again, I see this with nonprofits. People come in with the grand vision of, and it's not just nonprofits, sometimes for-profits do this, of all the things they want to do and become. And, you know, you kind of have to say, okay, that's what fuels your passion. That's good that you've got this vision, but you can't start with that. You know, you've got to come back down to something that you can get your arms around. You know, unless you've been a serial entrepreneur and have a lot of your own money, in which case you're not coming to SCORE in the first place. You got to figure out what's that minimum viable product. What's that core offering that you are the best at, that you have the experience and knowledge to do better than anyone else, for which there's a real need out there in the marketplace. And so that's, again, where I bring in the lean startup approach and say, focus on something simple that you can try out and learn from, and go from there. Sometimes I'll use the approach of the Simple Steps class. You got to get them to articulate their business concept. Sometimes they have just a great deal of difficulty narrowing it down into what it is that they're going to offer and what's the value, you know, to the client for that. Who's their target market? Getting them to define, no, we're not going up after the entire country. You know, particularly if you're not an internet-based product, you know, define specifically the geography that you're going to target and how you're going to get your message to those people, and you know, where are they? So I use the lean startup. There's a couple of tools, business model canvas, I think you've all been exposed to. With nonprofits, I use something called the Logic model, which helps kind of jumpstart their business planning process kind of on a one-page basis. It's a simple, very simple tool that they can kind of net out their thinking, but if they can do that on this one-page form, you know, they've come a long way into narrowing down and defining a potentially viable business concept.
You know, it's interesting, if you look at the third point here, focus on the following. Most of the first three of those bullet points really are the basis for the beginning of the business model canvas, right? Creating a value proposition. And I think I happen to be working with a client now, a young woman, and we started to go through the business model canvas, and we've spent 2 months with her working on her value proposition and going out and doing interviews and talking to people. And she has a completely different view of her business now than she did when she started. What she thought she was going to do and where she is now is in a completely different place, because I really pushed her to go out and define her value proposition and test it. And, you know, part of me keeps waiting for her to say, we've spent 2 months on this one piece, I want to start a business. Luckily, she's somebody who's got the long view, and she wants to do it right, and it's worked out really well. But it's been a great education process for me on the value of the business model canvas and the value proposition, and it certainly has helped her, because I think she's gone from a business that may have been a non-starter to something that she has a viable shot at making work now. Mike?
You know, I think a big part of our job is to help the client understand what kind of a plan they need. I'm not sure the business model canvas is any less confusing than a regular business plan template if we just kind of put it out there. I think we need to take the client, you know, more or less by the hand and discuss what they really need to plan for. Sometimes we say you don't really need a plan, but you always need a plan. We all made a plan how to get here today, right? We decided what time to leave home, what road to take. We didn't have to write that down, but there was a plan. And I always think that any business, no matter how large or small, needs to plan for what work needs to be done, what is the product or service, how's that going to get produced, how much can they produce, who are the customers, who's the competition, how are you going to connect with the customers, because nothing happens until somebody buys something, and what do the numbers look like? How much will it take, not just to start the business, but to get it up and running and viable, and how much do you have to make for this to be worthwhile? And think about those three things, and then build a plan around those, and the rest of it, as necessary, will come into place.
Anything anyone in the room has done, either using Lean Startup or Business Model Canvas or other tools that help clients really get focused on their business that you want to share? Okay. Yeah.
I'm not sure if this fits, but the thing that I have seen the most in my 18 years of doing this is people not working on the right things. They come in, they're enthused, they got a good idea or an idea, and they're focused on what they're comfortable with. And they're not focused on the thing that they need to be doing. And I think it's human nature. We all like to do that. I counseled a gal who just purchased a coffee shop. And I went in to see her at her place of business. And we chatted. I said, well, how can I help you? She said, well, I'm really bogged down. I said, what's that? She said, I'm having trouble with my HR manual. I've been working on it for days. I said, how many people do you have? She said, 2. I said, well, how much sales do you have? And you got all these machines. Do you know what you're generating? No, I don't know yet. So she was completely focused on the wrong thing.
Yeah.
I had people come in, I had a Ford engineer come in who was retired, and he was working on his corporate structure. He didn't know if he should be an LLC or an S Corp or a C Corp. And so, do you have any customers? No, but I gotta get this right. No, you don't. You gotta focus on where you're gonna get your business. So I think that one of the things that we have to do is listen, see what the things are that they need to do to make this business go or not go, and get them directed. And sometimes you gotta jog them out of that comfort zone and say, stop working on this, and this is what you need to do.
Yeah, it really, what you said strikes me, really relates back to some of the conversation we had about the mentor needing to have a point of view, and one of those points was being willing to ask hard, uncomfortable questions. Get people out of their comfort zone, because you're right, human nature, we all do it. We all try to stick in places we're comfortable, and maybe part of the role of the mentor needs to be to force them out of that comfort zone and look at the things of the business that they're not comfortable with.
I've got a client right now who is very hung up on social media. And I do all this social media because I know it brings in business. Then why is it you're losing money this month? Well, they haven't come in, they haven't shown up yet. Well, what you need to do is generate business now, not referrals later. That doesn't bring in money. You need to do something now. But social media is comfortable for this
Yeah.
person, so that's what she does.
They're probably a millennial, right?
No.
No, oh, I would've bet.
No, she's not.
That's my preconception sneaking in.
Would be mine.
The last point on this relates to that subject also, the things they aren't comfortable with.
Yeah.
More often than not, it's the financial piece, and we've got a very powerful tool, I think, in
Yes,
that
I agree.
financial projections template. And, whether it's for-profits or non-profits, you got to know how you're going to make that cash flow and get to break even and so forth. And if you're not focused on comfortable, doing that, that's an area that we got to help them with and make
Bill,
sure they do.
Do you think it's appropriate for us to spend more time in the chapter for us to understand what's in that template and for us to understand how to do cash flow analysis? Because quite candidly, the template is complicated, we all know that. Bob
Yeah.
has broken it down to fairly simplistic ways that we teach it, but it's still not working one-on-one in a cash flow model for a client.
Yeah.
And I would suggest that maybe not all of us are comfortable with that.
Well, it could be. I found that little workbook that was written that explains it very valuable, that you can almost go through that workbook and fill in the blanks before you even get into the Excel model, and it explains the concepts in terms that everybody can
The big
understand.
problem is nobody knows where that workbook is.
Can't find it on the web.
Well, every time you find financial projections, it's one of the 3 or 4 links right there together. You just got to pull that down with the Ann's Nursery example, but yeah, maybe we don't know where to find it, but it's there, and it's a key additional tool to making that financial projections template usable. If they walk through that workbook, it explains it very understandable.
One of the points I always make, I mean, I was a CFO for 17 years of my career, and when I first opened that model, I kind of rocked back in my chair. It looks a lot more complicated than it really is. It's
Right.
designed in a way almost to intimidate people. And so one of the points I make with clients is, you know, take a look at the model, this is the link, I can help you walk through it, but don't let it intimidate you.
Yeah.
If you take it one step at a time, it's usable for almost anyone who has a basic understanding of Excel. But it is, when you open it up and see what are the 13 tabs,
Probably more than that.
Oh,
It was
multiple-
20.
yeah.
21, I
and
think.
multiple colors and everything, it's intimidating to people. And so I just get that on the table. That when you open it, you're gonna be taken aback a little bit. Trust me, it's fairly straightforward, it's fairly simple once you understand how it works. And that has been fairly useful for me. Don?
Bob, as you know, you helped me with some client, and you told me, you said, hey, don't even use that. And you took the lady, you took it to one piece of paper, and she got it like that. And I started that concept that you taught me, and I tell you, it's been beautiful.
The issue there, I think, is that was a client that was in business and had one specific problem to deal with.
Right.
And it was already beyond the point of looking at her whole business. But yeah, I think there were times where if you have a specific financial problem, you don't necessarily want to go and use the template to build a whole financial model just to solve that problem. So you have to pick and choose, I think. There was a question back here.
I don't know why we don't have this, our SCORE National doesn't have a simpler, you can keep that one, but have a 1 or 2 pager. It's easier. Somebody in Lancaster, Pennsylvania did the one that's in there. And he spent thousands of hours putting it together. And I had another guy we're gonna take on, let's do a simple one, and we never did it. And we talked about it for years, but it would be so easy to have a pro forma income statement, cash flow statement, something that people, I've had trouble with that thing, and I'm pretty good with it.
There are
And
some.
then it gets it's protected sometimes, and you can't enter sometimes, just.
Although the password is there, it's on the
Yeah.
first
I
page.
know,
Yeah.
it's just.
There are some other simple, I mean, there's a simple one-page cash flow statement, there's other ones. The beauty of this one is that it's all interconnected. And if you do the inputs, you get the outputs automatically. I find it, some clients are very comfortable with Excel, and you get it to them, and they can start plugging numbers in, and then you get together and correct things that are wrong. But a lot of times, or sometimes anyway, I'll make an appointment to sit down with the client at a computer and start putting numbers in. And you can start with very round, basic numbers, just to see
Just
what
assumptions,
happens.
yeah.
Put a few numbers in this page, a few numbers in that page, then go back over time and fill in the detail more specifically.
I agree with Mike's initial point totally, that the interconnectedness of this is the beauty of it. It's easy to sit down and do an income statement. It's relatively easy to sit down and do a cash flow statement. It's relatively easy to sit down and do a balance sheet standing by itself. But making sure they all interconnect and a change in one influences the other is very, very difficult in a simple model. And so I think you have to pick your spots based on how the complexity of the business your client's starting. If they're starting a little cake shop, they probably don't have to worry too much about their balance sheet. And also the sophistication of the client. Some clients can handle those models and some can't.
Some clients, don't need them either. Like I'm working with one client who's doing what I would call in the field of wellness consulting. There's no capital, no overhead. She's trying to organize seminars. So she can do back of the envelope stuff. How many people at what price? So there's no point using it unless it's needed.
Yeah. Okay, we should, go ahead, Dick.
Can I ask a general question?
Yeah.
I don't know, I'm a detail person, so I like to do homework before before I prepare for these clients before I get in there. And that hasn't been discussed here, and that form that they fill out, you know, that gives, that's all the information I have, like the wedding plan or whatever. And I usually spend a good, probably an hour before I get in there. About this different, about what they want and what they think about and sort of prepare to go in, but it's only have an hour.
If you'd waited one more, you would have been a great setup man for point number 6. Let's move on to point number 5.